Okay, nice quick daf today, guys, I think. In the sugya of Taruvis, we're up to Ayin Zayin Amid Beis. Ayin Zayin Amid Beis. So we were discussing until now solids getting mixed together, different karbanis with chulin, bachar, hisuri hana, different halachas, hirat shistavu, yamusu, selling them well for karbanis, but bittel with Rabbi Eliezer, you'll say this one, migu that you do two at a time, migu this one also, ganze taruvis. Now, this mission is discussing liquid. Dam shenis arev b'mayim. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with this water. It's just that when you go ahead and you spritz, you got to spritz dam. So dam shenis arev b'mayim. Im yesh maris dam kosher. If the appearance still looks like dam, it's kosher. It could be diluted up to a point, but as long as it looks like dam, it's kosher for zrika. This arev b'yayin, if it gets mixed in wine, which is red, and therefore you will never be able to tell the chayra at which point in time it loses its identity as dam, right? Royin oisai kiluhu mayim. We'll view it as if it's mayim. In the Havamina guys, we'll view the wine as if it's mayim, and if there's more wine, if there's more blood, it still retained its appearance even after you had the same amount of wine as water. You would be able to do zrika. You'd be able to do zrika. Says Rashi, Nisar biyayin shu adon, which is red. Vein mari nikaboy, and therefore you won't be able. You can't recognize the blood. Roy no yayin kilu humayim v'oimdin, and we make an evaluation. Im hayadam shenis ariv kan nika b'mayim halalu kashel is rika. If this dam was in this wine would still be recognizable as if this wine was water, then it's kashel is rika. Okay, this ariv b'dam behema or b'dam achaya. Now you're getting mixed in the dam of chulin, of an animal of chulin, or the animal or the blood of chulin, or the blood of a chaya, which both are not permitted on the mizbeach. Right? It's like hilumayim, the same halacha. We'll view it as if it's water. It's min b'minoi. It's not min b'minoi. It's not batel. It is batel. You would say so if it has the appearance of water, then it's more water, then it'll be batel. If not, not. Okay. So in other words, we do go after a cheshbon. We go after a cheshbon of measurements. So the measurement is that if you have water mixed with dam mixed with water, as long as the water is not too much to take away the identity of the dam, who adin if it's mixed with red wine, who adin if it's mixed with water, other blood that shouldn't be on the mizbeach. If in fact that what you go ahead and you are able to evaluate that it would retain its identity, then you could do the zrika. That's what we saw so far. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, ein dam mevatel dam. This is Rabbi Yehuda's shita throughout Shas, fellas, that ein dam mevatel dam, meaning if I have dam of chulin or dam of achaya, I could have 1,000 to 1 ratio, as long as that can't be mevatel dam, and you could do this rika. You could do this rika, right? Ein dam mevatel dam. There's a cheshbon. We all know that the dam of by Yom Kippur, the dam of a par is more than the dam of a soyer. Yet it's called dam paras dam soyer. So you see that that it retains its identity despite the fact there's more bull dam than there's goat dam. So it retains its identity. So this is Rabbi Yehuda's shita that min b'minoi is loy batel, right? And even if you have a small amount in a tremendous amount, it's kosher l'zrika. According to Chachamim, the Tanakama, that's not so. Again, it would have to retain its identity despite the mixture. Now, let's say the blood gets mixed in with blood that's puzzle. So not chulin, not chaya, but let's say the dam of an animal that was a reveya or a nirva, right? Let's say a reveya of nirva, or an animal that you brought chutz l'zman, chutz l'makom, and that is a psul in the dam. Then what do you do with it? You don't sprinkle it. You don't say, we'll view that as if it's water. You won't say we'll view the dam that's puzzle as water, But Yishbach la'ama, we know there was an amma, there was a canal going through the Beis Hamikdash where all the psulim would go. They put the dam puzzle and they would go to a place called Nachal Kidron. B'dam tamsis, if it gets mixed into dam tamsis, you also yishavich la'ama. Dam tamsis is fellas the blood that drains. In other words, the only blood that we use for this rika we saw is dam nefesh. That's the blood that comes out in a spurt at the time of the shchita. The stuff that drains afterwards, that's not kosher shchita. If it gets mixed in dam shchita with dam tamsis, also yishavich la'ama. That's what the Tanakhama says. Rabbi Eliezer machshir. Rabbi Eliezer says no. The dam tamsis you will be kosher. In other words, you will be able to do zrika. Imlay nimlach if you don't ask. Imlay nimlach nasan kosher. If you don't ask on this last din of the dam tamsis, if you don't ask and you do it, it's kosher. Now this is not Rabbi Eliezer. If you look at Rashi, guys, imlay nimlach v'nasan kosher. I feel the Tanakhama. Even the Tanakhama would admit that if dam tamsis is kosher. As we're going to see in the Gemara tomorrow, it's the reason why we don't go ahead and allow dam tamsis is not a deraisa dekadin, it's a gzeira derabanan. That if you can let you use dam tamsis that's mixed with regular dam, you may come to do dam tamsis alone. In other words, it's not innately. It's not innately. It's a gzeira. So because of that gzeira, therefore it would be kosher. Okay.
Would Rabbi Yehuda also? Rabbi Eliezer sounds like
Rabbi Yehuda doesn't need this. He says your dam is still right. And this,
the second on the sefer, the Sari B'da.
Again, I don't know if he is this gezerah. I'm not sure. I didn't see enough of the Gemara yet to know. We'll see the Gemara. I'm not sure. Because this is not a din and bittul. It's a din l'chari you're putting up. No, it's gezerah. It has nothing to do with bittul. The din of Yehuda is a din. It's not batal. Over here, there's nothing to do with bittul. It's gezerah. So l'chari. Al regel achas, without seeing the Gemara, I would tell you Rabbi Yehuda would agree with this. But we have to see. Guys, the Gemara is, okay, the next piece. Okay, now, is there a difference between blood falling into water and water falling into blood? Now, at the end of the day, it's mixed, right? But is there a difference? And we're going to see there is. That we view it mixed when the wine, when the blood mixes with water, that we as long as the wine retains the dam retains its identity, it's kosher. El shenaflu mayim l'toich dam. The water is falling into the blood. Aval nafel dam l'toich mayim, but if the blood is falling in the water, rishain batal. It's going to be batal. And therefore, we won't say this halacha. Says Rashi, Lo shanu dim yesh ba maris dam kosher. That it still looks like blood, it's kosher. V'af agav deruba mayim, even though the majority is water. That's the chiddush, guys. Guys, if the roiv is blood, it looks like blood, it's roiv blood. The chiddush is if it's not roiv blood, but it looks like blood. That's the chiddush. It looks like blood, despite the fact that it's not roiv blood. It's roiv mayim. Lo shanu, that halacha is only that's when the water falls into the blood. But if the blood falls in the water, then we're going to say rishain batal, and we're going to say it becomes batal, and then we're going to go after roiv. And even if it looks like blood, we're going to say that blood is batal, and you can't do it. So one by one, if the water falls in the blood, then that's our Mishnah. But if the blood falls in the water, each time it falls in, it's going to be batal. That's the difference. However, regarding the halacha of kisei adam, whether there's a mitzvah to go ahead and cover the blood, it doesn't make a difference. Even if the blood fell in the water, it still be halachic dam requiring kisei. Again, le'inyan, if it's considered bloodless rika, then it would be a difference. It would only speaking where the water falls in the blood. However, if the blood falls in the water, it's going to be batal, and you can't do zrika because it's not considered dam. because the majority of it is what? Is water. On the other hand, where the blood falls in the water and you still have a majority of the water, but it looks like dam, in kisei adam, you'd have to go ahead and cover it up.
Wait,
There's nothing. Let me finish.
okay.
Let me finish. There's no dachli b'mitzvahs. We've had this, whether the din of dachli is only a din limited to kachim, or is a din of kol tarakula. We had it in Sukkah, for example. Comes Yontif, you have the berries that are on top of the hadassim. You can't use it. The berries come off the hadassim, shine. You could use it, right? You could use it. So that's by mitzvahs. By dachim, Bali Chaim Nidachim, the whole sugya, we had the machloikis between Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Chanan Mitzri, regarding the Sira of Yom Kippur. So we're saying a chiddush now, and I'm going to see Rashi, and then we'll take Heshi's question if it's not answered. Okay? We're saying the following. The Mishnah tells us if something is majority is not blood, but it looks like blood, and it's blood of a carbon, it's kosher for zrika, right? However, that's only if the water fell into the blood. If the blood fell in the water, each droplet of blood that falls in, we're going to be mevatel, and therefore, it comes a time when the majority of is water, we don't no longer look at it as blood. Yes, Heshi.
I'm just not clear, just for clarity purposes. So if just to give an example, let's say it's 10 ounces of water, and I could do one shot of blood is 15 ounces goes in at once, so it's rove blood.
No, it's got to be dripping in. Rishon. Got to drip in at a little bit at a time.
So let's say it didn't drip. Let's say it's a whole. I just doing
we're not discussing that.
Okay, so
that would be blood. That would be blood.
Okay, that's what I. We're
not discussing that. This is Rishon.
Okay.
Rishon. The lashon is Rishon batal. It's coming in one at a time.
Okay. All right.
Guys, so we're good. Now let's see the Indian dochi b'mitzvahs. Look at Rashi. Shmaka Rashi here. Shein dochi b'mitzvahs. The afa pishen nitcha tipa rishayna shenaflu teichamayim. Even though the blood that came in was bato miteichamayim. Has you see the lashon tipa? It's dripping in at a time. V'lehoya mar arisay nikor, and its mara is not recognizable. Afilu hachi ki hada nafal tipa shniya. Chayzerish rishayna v'nira. In other words, he's explaining how would it be considered blood? The concept of chayz v'nir. Chayz v'nir means schluft neshayna uitgewekt. It was sleeping and then it came back in. The issa was batal, but you know what? You regenerated it. Right? The starif imatim, it starved to the first tipa. V'chinafla at shehafchu mayim lamaris dam, and it dripped in till it changed the water to blood. Chayza v'nir l'kisa. You could see it again. V'lo yamin, we don't say hoyel v'nitcha yitcha. We don't say since it was out of the ballpark before it was woken up again. We don't say that. So in Achinami, fellas, what we say by Zrika, we don't say by Kisoi. By Zrika, what do we say? Rishon batal. So as soon as it falls in, it's gone. As soon as it falls in, it's gone. So therefore, even if it looks like blood, it's not there. That because we say yesh dachi by kachim, but by mitzvahs we don't say that. This is again the yisoid we've been exposed to. It's geschmack. Okay, we get it very much now into very, very the sugyas of tam ke'ikr. The sugya of when we think about most of the times when something's not kosher, it's you have mamashais there. You go ahead, you go to you have a taruvis. Let's say you go to you have a chaza. A chaza falls into a cholent, and you cooks throughout the cholent. So you have mom, and you go there. There's no more chaza. There's nothing. So you have the ikers in the cholent. What happens if it stood there for a while? You went ahead, took it out, and now you don't have that. You have tam. You have the tam. The question is that tam is. We know there's a din of batal b'shishim. We know that you can be vatal the tam. And the question is, would you get malchus for eating that for just the tam? Okay, tam kicker. If you don't have a share of bittul, even if you have a majority, you don't have. Let's say you don't have 60, but you have a majority, then it's not going to be batal. So we have a very interesting case over here. Here's the case. I'm going to give it to you outside. You have a case of pigel and nicer. The havamina, they're two different objects. The pigel is meat, and the nicer is left over mincha. So it's min be'ein minay. It's min be'ein minay, right? That's what you have. I'm chewing it. I put a kazayas of one, a kazayas of another in my mouth, and you chayiv chorus on one, malchus on the other. You get malchus of both. Even chayiv chorus is chayiv malchus. Okay, so guys, listen to the case. So now I have a kazayas of one, a kazayas of the other. I begin to chew. In my mouth, one is going into the other. We don't say that they're equal going in here, equal over there, depending upon how you chew, which gets chewed up first. The tam of one is going to go into the other. Yeah? So now, is that tam mevatel that tam? So I have pigel, I have nicer. Now, the nicer is going in, and now I have 60 times, I have the roiv, I'd say I have a roiv of what? Of nice, a pigel of a nicer. So now I have a real big pigel, and I have a very small nicer. In other words, I don't have the shear nicer to be mechayev me. I do have the shear to be mechayev me. I have the shear of pigel. I don't have the shear of nicer. Pigel was kazayas. Now it's bigger. Nicer is less than a kazayas. Says Reish Lakish, you're not going to get malchus, because in order to get malchus, you have to give hasra, and any hasra you give is hasra suffik. You don't know which in his mouth which you're eating. You don't know which is the more, which is the less. And Rabbi Reish Lakish is of the opinion, hasra suffik, hasra you give on a doubt is not a good hasra. Now, listen, this is all predicated upon if you hold that this pigel is mevatel the tam of the nicer. If you hold it's not mevatel the tam of the nicer, then I have a kazayas of both. I have a physical kazayas of pigel. I have a physical kazayas of nicer, machmas the tam. In other words, the tam is not batel, and therefore what? I would have both. So the fact that Reish Lakish says you don't get malchus, we can ascertain three things. Right? We can ascertain three things. The first one is that what? We say bittel by isser, because you don't say just bittel by isser v'heter. Here you're dealing with nicer and pigel, and we're going to say one is mevatel the other. Secondly, we're going to say that tam ke'ikr is not the raisa, because if it was the raisa, I don't care that what? That I don't have a full kazayas in the nicer itself. I have with the tam, I have the full kazayas. Ella, when you tell me you're not getting malchus for that, it must be that what? This is a din, the rabbanon. Because it was the raisa, even it's mevatel. What's a mevatel? It's still there. And finally, we're going to hear that what? That hasra suffik is not a good hasra when you don't get malchus. So those are the three dinim. Okay, what we're going to do is we'll see the Gemara and we'll go through Rashi, and hopefully it'll get a little more clearer than I explained it. Albeit I thought I explained it pretty good. Says the Gemara. Amar Reish Lakish. Hapigel v'anaiser, take out the word v'tameh, guys. Take out the word v'tameh. Shebal and zeh b'zeh, they mix together. You chew them, you put them in your mouth, you mix them together. V'achlon, mashma, fellas, it was bolal before it got into your mouth. But anyway, Shabal and Zebazeva Achlan Potter, you're not going to get malchus. Efsha, it's not possible. Shlayarbe min al chaveroi, v'yatlena. It's not possible that either the pigel shouldn't be more than the nicer shouldn't be more pigel, and mevatel it. So in other words, I'm being mevatel the tam. So in one of the two instances over here, I have something I can't be mechayev for. Because once I'm mevatel the tam, I don't have the share of a kazayas. Guys, once I'm mevatel the tam, I don't have the share of kazayas, right? You're telling me you're not getting malchus. Now, it must be why you're not getting malchus, because on one of these two, I'm not getting malchus for. Which one is that? Whichever one whose tam went in the other one. If it was the pigel and the nicer the pigel. Okay, I used the case of nicer into the pigel. So that's the first thing. Now, what's the chiddush over here? What's the chiddush over here? Shma mina tlas. Shma mina isur mevatem zeh. Don't think that only Isser and Heta can be Mevatel Isser. But Isser can't be Mevatel Isser. No. Pigel can be Mevatel Nicer, and Nicer can be Mevatel Pigel. It could be. It could be Mevatel. Ushma Mina, Noisin Tam Beroiv, Lav Deraisa. The din of being Noisin Tam Beroiv is not Deraisa. Because if it was Deraisa, I would be Chayiv, despite the fact that what? That the size is not there anymore, but the Tam is. Despite the, again, because the Tam is. Guys, look at Rashi on this one. Shma Mina, in the middle of the fat lines. Mam Shmak in the middle. Shma Mina, Noisin Tam Beroiv Lav Deraisa. Hadam Rabbanon, Bechol Duchte, Issa HaNoisin Tam Beheta, Oisroi, that Issa of Tam in Heta asses it, the Afapisha Heta Beroiv, even if you have a majority, it's since you have, guys, you have a majority of Heta, right? Nonetheless, if you have the Tam, right? If you taste the pig in the kosher, in the kosher noodles, if you taste the pig in the kosher noodles, right? It's good. It's asa. Why? Because I have much more kosher noodles, Ella what? We say that it's once the tam is not bottle. If it has shishim, then we'll say it's bottle. But if you don't have shishim, you just have roiv. You have a majority. We don't say it's bottle. That perhaps is only when it's kosher noodles. Over here, I'm saying it by what? By pigel and nicer. That's the chiddush. I'm saying it by pigel and nicer, even though what? They're both isurim. And now, so what are you going to say? Lav deraisahu. This din is not deraisa lilkas alav. In other words, it's tam kiik is not deraisa. The ida raisa nehi nami deraba al chaveroi, because if it was deraisa, good, there's more pigel than nicer, or vice versa. Mikomakom time yoyev. The pigel is giving, the nicer is giving time to the pigel. The iketimer the shir shalem, and you have the tam of the full share. It didn't leave your mouth, guys. The gazayis is there. It's there in its essence, and it's there in its tam. So therefore, if you're going to say it's the raisa, it's not bottle. Ukasal kedai techashta, the afilu pigel b'neiser base meaning, even two different meaning. Shetaimai shalzeh nikabizeh, that you can recognize it. Nami patal reish lakish kigoin hai basa v'ayshiri mincha. This is basa and shir mincha. So again, let's go through it. It's geshmak. It's very geshmak. You have over here a guy is eating in the Havamina. He's eating meat and he's eating flour. Okay, min be'enai minai, right? If you have it, you're not going to get malchus. You're not going to get malchus. You're not going to shma mina. We're going to go ahead and figure out three things. One, that two things that are asa could be mevatel each other. We don't just say what where it's heta mevatel issa, but two things could be mevatel each other. Good. Why? They're both yisurim. Nonetheless, we see when you don't get malchus is bittul. Secondly, this bittul, this din of tam that is mevatel is a din d'rabbanan. It's a din d'rabbanan that you could be mevatel it, because if it was the raisa. If this thing was the raisa, you would still get malchus, even though you don't have the full kazayas, but you have the tam with the kazayas. So the fact that you're not getting malchus, it's a din d'rabbanan. And thirdly, the din of what of hasra suffik loishma hasra, because no matter what, you're going to go ahead and tell the guy. No matter what you tell him, you don't know which one he's mechayah for, because you can only mechayah for one of them. Whichever the one was swallowed up the other one, that's the one you're going to be chayiv for, and you don't know which one. Shma mina hasra safek loishma hasra. Massive rava. Now, guys, remember the havamina? The havamina is it's min b'sheina minoi, and what? It's the rabbanon. It's speaking nicer into mincha, right? It's speaking about a nicer, speaking about meat into a carbon mincha. Min b'sheina minoi. Massive rava. Asa isa min chitin umin ares. Okay, this is the din of challah, guys. Challah, you take off what? You take off only from the five minim. The five minim are chita, soira, kusemes, shiboy l'shuel, and kismin. Right? Those are the five minim. And by the way, I have a good mnemonic to remember. Kismin is spelt because it has a samech spelt. It's spelt in the right. That's spelled. And Shibola Shul is oats. That's the way. Okay. Anyway, they get mixed. You go ahead and you make a dough from wheat and from rice. We know rice is not chayiv and challah. Im yesh batam dagon. If in this mixture you have the tam of dagon, chayeves bechallah. You chayiv and challah. V'afagav the ruba oires. Even though roiv is oires. So you guys, you just finished telling me, fellas, let's go through this. You just finished telling me that even though you have roiv, you don't go after tam, right? What we're saying, you don't go after tam. You don't care about tam, right? All you care about is roiv. If again, that's what Shlaka said. You go after the majority, and it'll be mevatel it, and therefore you won't get malchus, right? Over here, you see, you do go after tam, and for the Gemara midrabanan, you go after tam, but midaraisa not. If you would cook this mixture of rice and chitim together, you'll be yotzi yechiyav of matzah. Guys, the chi of matzah is only the 5. So you see that, how can you tell me that it's the Rabbanon, it's the Raisa? So now you have a big kasha and Rish Lakish. Why do you see that you do go after tam? You do go after tam. Okay. Ella, what do you have to conclude? Min b'sheina minoi b'taima. I agree. Rish Lakish says when it comes to min b'eina minoi, you would go after tam. So going back to our case in Ahavamina, if he was chewing, in our case, if he was chewing nicer of meat and pigel of a mincha, even though you don't have the kazayas in any one of them anymore, but you have the tam, that if you would taste the mincha, you would taste the meat, then you would be chayiv. You would be chayiv. Guys, you hear? The havamina was min b'shein aminoi. We're changing that now. No, min b'shein aminoi, you go after tam. So where does Reish Lakish go after roiv, right? And min b'minoi berubai. Min b'mina goes after roiv. Min b'mina goes after roiv. So that din in our Mishnah, that the din that Reish Lakish said is speaking about you have a kezayis of basar of nicer, a kezayis of basar of pigel. In that case, even though one is going more than the other, and I can't figure out the tam because they taste the same, I'll go after roiv. That's Reish Lakish's din. So therefore, since you can't ascertain, Kasal Kedaitak, we just changed because of the kasha from matzah, we're changing the din. That din by matzah tells me that Reish Lakish is moida bin b'shein aminoi, which it gives the tam. When it gives the tam, then what? You're going to go after tam, and that'll be deraisa. And therefore, if the case of the case that he gave was nicer, and nicer was meat, and the pigel was mincha, he would go after the tam. In fact, you would get malchus. Guys, you good? Okay, now, how do we get into this? Remember, here's the rule of thumb. When the Gemara begins to go off on a tangent, they're always going to bring the Mishnah in as a kasha or a raya. In other words, they're going to bring it from our Mishnah. Says the Gemara, V'nishayir min b'minoi kim min b'sheina minoi. Now, I can't tell you the difference when it comes to tam, but why don't I evaluate? I know from our Mishnah, when I can't tell the difference of something, I evaluate. Guys, what was the case? First case, water, blood. You don't need an evaluation over there. They look different. So if I have enough water to go ahead and take away the appearance of what? Of blood, it's not going to be blood. Next case, I have blood and red wine. Can I suggest we're going to equate blood and red wine like min b'minoi? Yes? Because you're going after appearance, going after looks, yes? Going after looks. What did our Mishnah say, fellas, in that case? Royan. We go ahead and look at the red wine, pashtus, look at the red wine as if it's water. So what do you see, fellas? Eye contact. You see by min b'minoi, you do evaluate. You don't go after roiv. Fellas, look at me. Here's what Reish Lakish said. Reish Lakish said, my din, my din of min b'minoi, you go after roiv, is when it's min b'minoi, where you can't tell the difference. Fred the Gemara, why do you have to say that? I could go ahead and make every min b'minoi like min b'sheina minoi, and you go after tam. What does that mean? In the case of water, in the case of blood, it's min b'sheina minoi. So we'll equate the following. If I go ahead and have enough water to take away the appearance of the wine, of the blood, it's not blood. It's like the tam. I can't be mevatel the tam. So there's so much water, I can't be mevatel the water. Good. What happens if it's blood and red wine? Oh, blood and red wine, that's min b'minoi. So what should the din be? It should be batel b'roiv. But it's not. What is it? We'll view the red wine as if it's what? As if it's water, and make it into a min b'sheina mino. So frag the Gemara Gavaldig, like Reish Lakish, why do you say you go after roiv? In the case of min b'mino, you can make min b'mino, you can evaluate it, like we did in our Mishnah, because red wine and blood are like min b'mino, because you go after chazusa after its appearance. That's why I afraid the Gemara. Right? Look at Rashi. V'nisha min b'minoi k'min b'sheina minoi. Fourth line down. Kivin dehechet the kaimin ataima. Since where you go after the taste. Kol kama of taima. As long as it gives flavor. Loi bottle, it's not bottle. Ki lekel lemekim nami. Even when you can't go after taste. Amay mizal zelinon bi surei lemahadu levatlan beroiv. Interesting lashon. Why mizalzel in issa to say to go after roiv? Nema royin. Let's say royin. Iluhoya mim she'enay minoi. Hayeshba heker taima. If it was min b'she'enei minoi, I would have a recognition of the difference in taste. Hashtanami by red wine and blood, lai niftal. You shouldn't be bottle ad the rabba love kol kach until it's so much available. Kishir bittel shal min b'she'enei minoi. Geschmack, right? You know, what am I doing, fellas? I can make a min b'minoi into min b'she'enei minoi. Guys, why can't you can't have bittel tam by min b'mina because they taste the same. Meat and meat. Meat is meat. You can't be mevatel it. So you go after roiv. So we're suggesting that min b'mina could be like a min b'sheina mina. Where do you see such an idea? In our Mishnah. What does our Mishnah say? What does our Mishnah say? You're going to go ahead and view the red wine as if it's water. So what do you see? I made the min b'minoi, the meat and the dam and the red wine, into the same thing as dam and water. So why don't we do the same thing by every min b'sheina minoi? That's why I read the Gemara. Let's see it inside. Second line from the top. Unishaya min b'minoi k'min b'sheina minoi did nan nisarav biyayin roinoi soy kilahu mayim. Let's view the havamina. Let's view the wine as if it's water. My love roinoi soy liyayin kilahu mayim. So you see that what you don't go after roiv, and let's equate the appearance of wine and blood to min b'minoi, and nonetheless you don't go after roiv. So roinoi soy lidam kilahu mayim. No, we're not going to view the red wine as if it's water. We're going to view the dam as if it's water. And then what? And then you're going to go after roiv. In other words, if I view the dam as if it's water, then we're going to have the red wine be mevatel it, which is going after roiv. So if you've been mevatel the wine, that's a very good case, min b'sheina minoi. But now this is a case of going after roiv. You're telling me that, but no, it's still min b'minoi. And if you have more wine than red, if we'll view the dam as if it's what. If it's water, and it'll be mevatel it. Yihachi Fred Gemara bottle mi boile. It should say lashon bottle. It doesn't say bottle Mishnah. It doesn't say bottle. V'oi Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Aimer roine seki ilu yayin oda. We'll view it. We'll view it. What? We'll view it as if it's red wine. Im deya mare kasher v'mapas. Okay, let me explain to you what this Rabbi Yehuda is going on. Okay, we're gonna meet this Mishnah in a second. You want to go ahead, you have a kli that's bottle, a pail that's bottle and you're putting it into a mikvah. In the pail is water. So the halacha is that the water, we say the din of hashaka, that the water there is connected to the mikvah, and therefore will not be a chatzitza in this kli, and the kli is what it is. If you have a chatzitza in the kli, then it's not oila. Let's say you have red wine in there. Red wine is a chatzitza. So on that, says Rabbi Yehuda, right, we'll view this red wine, we'll view this as what it's yayin adam. And what does that mean? Imdeya mareu kasha. If its mara becomes diluted, then kasha, because we'll view it as water. Then lav pasal. And if not, it'll be pasal. So you see the same thing that what? Over here, l'chayra, we can say that's his opinion. So what do you see? You see Rabbi Yehuda says that what? That despite the fact that it's you're not being mevatel dam, in like a case you're being mevatel the water, you're being mevatel the wine, excuse me. Okay, you're being mevatel, right? If you look at Rashi, says Rashi, Mayim upasel the batle beruba hoyel ubasel chazus aslinon v'hachalekla make him alert the milsa batle beruba. Rabbi Yehuda, I'm right. I say kilo hu yayin adaim. Like come on, ma'asila lekula mishnah. We're going to bring the whole thing. So we see now tanoihi. So we're going to say it's a machlokas tanoim. The Tanya. The li sheyesh b'yayin lavan, a deli that has white wine, or chalav, or milk. So you have a problem, fellas. If it's red wine, we can see mevatel by its color. Over here, you can't be mevatel by its color. If it's viloy heichel nachar roiv, you go after roiv, you go after roiv. If there's more water, guys, then it's bottle, and it's a good tefillah. If there's not more water, then it's not. This is Reish Lakish, guys. Reish Lakish is a machlokas tanoim. This is the shittas Reish Lakish, that you're going to be mevatel it b'roiv. You're going to go after roiv. So this is his shita. So we're going to say that if there's more water than lavan, than white wine or chalav, where you can't go after mareu, and you put then you put it in the mikvah, you go after roiv. You go. It depends. What's in the kli? If there's more water in the kli, it's a good tefillah. If there's less water in the kli, it's not. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, we'll view it. Ki'ilu hu yayin adam. We'll view the white wine as if it's red wine. Imdeha mareu. If its appearance gets less, kasha, because if its appearance gets less, it's a raya that will view it as water. Then lav pasal. So we see over here from Rabbi Yehuda that we're not going after the blood. We're going after the wine. So two things. We wanted to bring a raya that you could say royin by min b'minoi. And what's the case of royin by min b'minoi, guys? Outside, dam in red wine. So we're going to view the red wine as if it's water, make it min b'sheina minoi. The Gemara wants to say no, it's going on the dam. Two things. One, it should have said bottle and it doesn't. And Sveitens, we see Gufa, the same similar machlekes. Rabbi Yehuda says it's going on the mayim, is going on the yayin, right? It's not going on this. So two reasons. So the right now we have machlekes tanoim. Reish Lakish is going according to the din that you go after roiv, and Rabbi Yehuda's din is the din of mayim. It's taka going on the yayin, not going on the blood. We'll stop over here.